technical difficulties.
What you doing, sir?
I've got one error that I want to make sure that's not affecting the stream.
Oh,
All right, cool. Ready to begin. All right. Welcome to the Haverhill.biz meeting for May. Yes, it is May.
it is.
Here we are. I was hoping to get an update on the fence and the bridge mural. So Matt, do you have any any information on progress around painting something on the fence? Or not the fence, but the,
Well, so
Bridge.
the fence and the mural on the masonry wall are sort of phase two.
okay,
Phase one, we put together signage graphics
yep,
and submitted them to Andrew Hurley, who it is said was to have submitted them to the project people who are doing the construction to get that fabricated. I had no confirmation that any of that's gone forward.
okay.
But we did our part.
So it has been submitted to MBTA or?
We don't know.
We don't know,
We
okay.
sent to Andrew who.
Did you see it before it went in?
Yeah,
Did it come out looking like that mock-up?
I think so.
Yeah?
There's some changes. I think that's the one, though. Yeah, it pretty much. I think it might be rather than you see how the letters of the word Haverhill are.
It's
kind
like
of
an
modeled?
orange tone on rust.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know if that's a great
it's a more
contrast.
so it's a more contrast. You see how it's sort of modeled.
Yeah.
It's a more even single color. I think is where we ended up. So it's graphically punchy. It's good. It's all that stuff. It's a smaller size than was envisioned in this.
Okay,
It's 4 by 16, but that's the latest. I don't.
that's the latest
Yeah.
on that, all right.
And are those currently expected to be cut and welded together by Dale Rogers? Is that that was something that they had mentioned at one point?
No. So go back. It's the only thing that phase one is the sign above above the roadway.
Yeah.
Welcome to Haverhill. That's phase one. Phase two are the vertical surfaces, the mural on the right and the mural on the left. Those are not part of what we're doing right now, although we love it and we're gonna do it.
Cool.
This is a sort of a two-part confluence of issues. One was the fence that's on the right-hand side of the picture there went up, sort of overnight without anyone understanding how awful it was gonna look and had barbed wire and it was
Right,
awful.
so somebody got the barbed wire down though, and
Yes.
apparently
And so
nobody
we-
knows who.
Yep, and so we hatched a plan to do something, to come up with concepts for taking it down or decorating it or doing something to make it look like we meant it. And at the same time, the people who are running the MBTA bridge construction project or renovation project through Andrew said, hey, we've got a 4 by 16 foot sign panel that's part of our job, part of our project that came down at the beginning and was thrown away, and we have money in there to reconstitute it. Give us artwork or graphics or something.
That's for the one on the bridge.
So, for the one on the bridge, and so, that kind of initiated this undertaking, where we put the ideas for the fence, as well as a notion about the bridge sign together, and said, let's look at the whole thing, let's make a portal for the city that's got,
Yeah.
murals, signage, and so signage is the first step.
Yeah, I was here,
Submitted.
I don't know when that was, last month or 2 months ago, that Jenny and Aaron did a presentation on it here.
Yep.
I think you were
Yep.
climbing African mountains.
No, yeah, or maybe I was here for something, maybe after that, and since then we've got we got the scaled elevation of the bridge, so we know what size 4 by
Gotcha.
16 looks like. So we know how to, sort of set up the graphics and what's too small and what's, so we've done all of that and nudged it around and got it just right and sent it off.
Good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
phase one out of our hands so far. Let's see where that goes, and then let's start focusing on phase two.
Excellent. So Kevin, I'll turn it over to you here in terms of possible dreams. And what came from that?
So, I think you guys had discussed it a bit.
We touched on it.
Were you at Possible Dreams?
No.
So are you familiar with it though?
Yep,
It's,
yep, I get it,
So,
yep.
and you've been there in the past, and I know you were there. I don't know if you were gone before it started, right? But
AJ, join the community.
I sent him home, he's on the clock.
that's right.
You live in Haverhill,
We'll see you
right?
later.
No,
I
you
live in
don't?
Newmarket.
He used
Oh,
to.
I thought you lived
used
in
to.
Haverhill. Okay. No, you're excused,
Yeah.
just like I am.
That's why I slink away.
So, basically, it's a community visioning event. It happened on March 11th, and we had about 135 attendees, I think.
Nice.
Basically, what we did was broke down into small table discussions for 2 rounds. The first round was about what do you like about Haverhill, what are things that you appreciate currently about Haverhill. Round 2 was more about what do you want to see in the future in Haverhill. And then round 3, we had individual people from those small group discussions step forward with ideas that they were specifically and individually passionate about, and would lead a 3rd round discussion, pulling from all, from the full room, from all the different tables, for people that were interested in their specific idea. So
great format.
what we have is a list of, and I think Seth has, so he mimicked some of it here, and it is better than me reading all of them. But some of the ones that are specifically related to the downtown community. Lisa Marzilli had Cleaner and Greener Downtown. Basically the idea of going from Railroad Square all the way down here to Harbor Place on Washington and Merrimack Street, doing small painting projects, cleanup projects, planting projects, just to try to really take it to the next level as far as curb appeal goes. We had 2 different attendees that had separate groups that eventually merged for the larger conversation about flashing speed limit signs, traffic and pedestrian safety. There were also a lot of comments about that. So essentially another part of the event is everybody gets a response card, and they write down individual responses as well as their participation in the evening. So we kind of go through those and tally those at the end of the night. And there were a lot of comments about flashing speed limit signs and pedestrian safety as well.
And that was on broader, through Haverhill
It
in general,
was
or
it
focused
was
on a particular area?
more general, but a lot of the individual responses specified downtown specifically.
Specifically,
Yeah.
interesting, okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Which is why Kevin is here to report to us.
Yes.
Yes.
I took these and I thought, this might overlap with
No,
downtown, but I
there
wanted
was
to.
there was
Good,
you
yeah.
know there
Good,
were a few specific comments about other areas of town and a couple general ones, but
Yeah.
the bulk of them were about downtown pedestrian safety.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
The Merrimack Valley Music and Arts Startup Village is a project by Latria Masters that is I think it's a nonprofit business, or I'm not even sure if it's nonprofit, but it's almost an existing business that's she just got the property and got it up and
Yeah.
going, but it's
Where?
I think it is in Mount Washington. I'm not exactly sure. I might actually have the address right here.
I know she's looked at different addresses at different times and had a number.
Yeah,
of-
she got something though. The last time I saw her, yeah, they were moving.
Good.
Where is she? Burgess Building?
Oh,
145
Yep.
Washington Street.
Okay.
Washington.
Or
145
Essex,
Washington.
probably Essex.
145 Essex?
Essex.
Which would be the Burgess
Would
Building.
be the
yeah.
Villagers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think she said Washington at the meeting. Maybe she.
She,
Oh,
we won't
It's all right.
That's
Um,
But,
The Cultural Festival 2020 is something that is being planned by the Haverhill Cultural Council. Hartel Johnson and Helen Sheehan are
Really?
kind of spearheading it. They want to put on a fest. I'm not even sure. I'm imagining out in, at the stadium is my guess, but I'm not even sure of that. They want to put on a, just a cultural festival, trying to bring, trying to showcase as many different cultures that are in the city as they can pull something from, whether it's food or dance or singing.
Sort of like the Lowell Folk Festival type?
No,
something
well,
like
I think
that?
the Lowell Folk Festival is more a music festival,
Yeah.
specifically around folk music. This, I think, is going to be more, more varied. Just like I said, dance, singing, food is another one. Any type of thing like that. I don't think it's specifically music based.
I wonder, I'm looking for something to team up with the bike race. I wonder if they would do that downtown and we could do it on the same day as the bike race.
When is that?
August 18th. Maybe not this year, but just as a concept going forward. I mean, it would be great to have that work with Kids Fest or River Fest or the Cultural Fest. You know what I mean? To have it
Round
be,
it out.
this great big long day of all sorts of great things, including this is part of it, and anyway, I'm just sort of free associating.
Just like we just had a conversation about expanding River Ruckus. That's a month later. But maybe, for future years, it's just something to think about because
Let's. I mean, we
we
plan these years out.
if we
so-
expand down to the Merrimack Street block, we could almost move the car show there and let the bike race happen up there, and then kind of brings the whole thing. Our big fear with expanding River Ruckus too quickly is that we're gonna have things happening on the outstretches of the
Yeah, the
perimeter of the
periphery, yeah.
festival area that won't necessarily draw people there. So,
Yeah,
the
you need-
car
you need
show
to
really
plan
does
it.
work because it's
Right,
close
right.
to where the food vendors are and where the music is. So most people do the car show and then go right down there.
Yeah.
But if we took the car show with nothing else to anchor it to and just moved it 2 blocks away, I think the car show would get a lot less walkers than it does since it's right on top of the music and the food. So,
Let's talk
yeah.
about this. It might be that the bike race happens in the morning and the cars are ready to roll in as soon as because the bike race breaks down really fast, and when it's over, it's over. It slams shut with a noise, and it would be perfect. I don't want to co-opt this though.
Putting Harbor Place to work was Dugan Sherwood's. Kind of self-explanatory, but I think just getting more business and activity happening down here.
Yeah.
Fire safety education, Adopt the Hydrant program is from the Firefighters Museum. That is something that I'm going to loop back to in one moment. And the final one up there is the master plan. Had a ton of comments about that. A ton of people want to, just the comments ranged everything from what they thought the master plan should be to making sure that there's community involvement, making sure that there's diversity in the panel, making sure that it was just a lot of feedback about the master plan in general, embedded in these comments on the response cards.
Good.
But those are definitely the most popular. The other one that was a very popular response that is not so specific to downtown was education. It was a theme this year that's obviously a rising tide in the city overall, just about the number of people involved in education advocacy and paying attention to what's going on with the schools, and Andy Vargas's Haverhill Promise initiative and all these kind of things. But what was it? The master plan? Yeah, just overall. In addition to downtown development type issues and things like that. Education was probably the second most popular thing that was either commented on, or when they broke into these third round groups, it was the biggest group. The education group was pretty sizable.
And the education plays a big role in terms of potentially either enabling or throttling economic development.
I think that's exactly right.
And that's our angle to it.
A pipeline of capable employees is vital for business growth.
Well, there's also
And a
the-
school district that people want to go to.
Want to
Like,
stay in,
people want to
exactly.
move here
It's all part of that
because, Yeah.
rather than having it just be a starter home community or
Right.
later in your career community, or later in life community. We want it to be a community that caters to, the entire continuum of life. And unfortunately, there are some issues that we've highlighted within the Hero Education Coalition that need improvement within education to maintain equity.
Yeah.
And I think that certainly can play a role in terms of the recycling of residential real estate within the city, and potentially forcing turnover where there otherwise wouldn't be.
Interesting, yeah. Good. Good issue.
So, I was explaining to Seth at the beginning, now that we've kind of just gone through and just touched on the most kind of relevant ones for Haverhill.biz, the one that I had spoken with Matt about when I saw you on the street briefly was that first one that's called Cleaner and Greener Downtown, which is this planting. So Team Haverhill has an initiative on their own called Small Projects, Big Impact, where we will donate a small amount of money and a small amount of volunteer time to kind of partner up or collaborate with someone else in the city to just move something along a little bit, however we can help in those ways. We just did the Dudley Porter Fountain cleanup. I don't know if any of you guys saw that on Facebook. That was something that we recently did. But one of the so we have a lot of investment in the farmers market, just put volunteer time, and Jeff and Lisa have worked real hard partnering with your group, the Greater Haverhill Foundation, the Chamber, Creative Haverhill. There's been a lot of people kind of collaborating to make that what it's the changes that have been seen there in the last year. They have gone beyond that and picked up a bunch of those empty planter boxes and added some hangers for hanging potted plants and stuff like that right around the farmers market. We basically want to take that though and go, if you go up the street, I don't know if you saw the slides that I emailed you right before the meeting.
No, I didn't pull them
But
up.
there's just little pieces from, again, we're talking from Harbor Place to Railroad Square that are just, right on the sidewalks, trees that are cut off as stumps, empty planter boxes that are now giant ashtrays, small bits of graffiti here and there, litter, just different things that we can do in a 2 or 3 hour group cleanup. We can go, even if it's just a half a block or less each time, getting together a few times over the course of the summer or even into the fall, and kind of tackling these things one by one.
Is it the kind of thing that Greater Haverhill, or that Haverhill.biz could team up with you guys in?
So one of the things that happened at Possible Dreams is once we brought this up, this Cleaner and Greener Downtown initiative, Shelley Dame Smith from the Firefighter Museum came forward to talk to us about the Adopt a Hydrant program. They basically have a kit at the Firefighters Museum that is paint and brushes, and it's just a little to-go kit that you can take and paint up a fire hydrant. They give you the spec sheet on exactly what paint, because I think it's two colors. And what
it's
goes
like
there.
there's a you're not gonna.
You're not painting it like bright yellow,
Daisies
bright
or
green,
something.
or putting flowers
They
on it.
they
Yeah.
take the creative twist out of it.
Okay.
The creative
You're-
freedom is removed, but it's still
But it's more
You're
of a
just making it look nice.
community maintenance is what it.
essentially.
Yeah.
So they are going to partner with us on that rather than just giving out the kits to us. They are going to put in, we're always kind of Team Haverhill. Whenever we take on these projects, we're always looking for people with a little bit of skin in the game.
Yeah.
Not just saying, here, you guys
You
go do
do it,
this.
right,
So they are going to come with their own volunteers, and while we do the planting and cleanup projects, they're going to take care of at least 10 fire hydrants
Great.
on that stretch as well. So that is something, and then there are ways that we're hoping maybe we can on some level collaborate with Haverhill.biz, whether it's just volunteers. We have volunteers, but there's other ways. There's a partnership with Noonan's Nursery where they will if they do watering services and maintaining the city
Yeah, the planters and all of the
Right.
hanging plants. and
all
that
the
stuff.
beds, the hanging ones,
Yeah, nice
so,
job, yeah.
they don't do it unless they have it on the list though. So, making business owners aware that that service is out there, that the fire hydrant, the painting your, you know, if you have a fire hydrant in front of your place that's rusted out, just trying to get the
Get it on the
knowledge
list.
spread that
So-
these things are possible to get done.
So Noonan's has got like a contract and if.
Well,
is-
I don't wanna speak out of turn about a contract or not,
Oh.
I'm not sure what the agreement is technically.
But we can say, hey, you didn't get our street, the planters on our street, could you add us to the list? And it's possible that they would expand their
Absolutely,
route.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, because, and then, so there's a little bit of overlap on people that are doing different things as well. The Haverhill Bright Sides group that kind of maintains parks and
Yeah.
gardens around the city.
Yeah.
They kind of oversee the planters and the hanging pots and all that kind of stuff. But they don't have a volunteer force to actively maintain them.
Right.
So basically what we've done is we've gone and said, hey, can we adopt the ones that are around the farmer's market? And they're happy to say yes. you know,
Good,
because
okay,
now
good.
we've already got them planted and watered and all that. And the goal is to kind of move that up the block, but we don't want to take responsibility for every planter. It'd be nice to, you know, have
other
relationships
partners.
with business owners that are, you know, in visual sight of those planter boxes that would say, hey, you know, maybe we could spend $100 on plants, put them in there and make sure that they're getting watered. So just a little, you know, it's a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra responsibility, but, you know, overall, if it was done all the way up the street, it would have an impact.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
good, good.
So, you know, either getting the word out there with Haverhill.biz, I don't know what, you know, what the best way to kind of collaborate on with that is, but there's a certain amount of,
We should try to make it a program rather than a general announcement that people will pass, like, you know, that you have to actively read that, understand it, make a decision to take part in it. Which I think will catch fewer people. But I think if we, you know, maybe at the creative industry night or the next time we have people's attention, announce an initiative and look for volunteers, and then we'll all convene afterwards, but, you know, and then, like, we'll actively administer with a map, you know, you're next to this planter, you're next
well,
to
we
this
already
one.
have some of that going too.
Oh,
So,
well, but so
yeah,
let us jump in with that too, cause, you know,
So Seth just put up a couple photos just as examples of the kind of things we're talking about, you know, so this is basically just a big empty, you know, that could be full of flowers or plantings and just stuff that collects under these benches and stuff like that. But yeah, so we that was one of the main conversation groups of round 3 that had started that night. So we already have sort of a rolling list of people that were interested in it. It was right behind education. It was the second most popular group.
wow. Good.
So there are a lot of people that are willing to put forward a little bit of volunteer time, people that were at least had enough energy to say that they supported that night, however you want to look at it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's, so I think Lisa has a running email list and is going to have I don't know if she's gonna have a meeting or just kind of try to run it through an email chain.
let's do this, I'm gonna come a week from yesterday, and do a talk with you guys. Let's hatch something together around that, and, cause I think the best way for us to join the effort would be if we made it a little bit official on our side, and said, hey, we're teaming with Team Haverhill, and here's what we're doing, if you have planters, or plantable areas or areas that need cleanup around your offices or businesses, let's, you know, we'll put together sort of a program for
Sure.
people to sort of raise their hand and say, I'm on this one, I'm on this one.
Yeah,
Because I think we'll have the best chance of success. And to have Lisa and you guys moving forward, covering a certain amount of territory already, and us jump onto that
sure.
inertia, I think
Yeah,
will be
that's
the-
why, you know, this
Yeah.
is exactly why I was bringing it up here.
Perfect.
So that we could, you
Good.
know, start taking steps in that direction.
Perfect, good.
That'll be
Let's-
good.
Okay, because I think that's.
So we've been joined by Ben.
But, welcome, Ben.
Ben, can you hear us okay, or is that terrible on the iPhone?
I can hear a little bit.
All right, I'm gonna call you back here,
Better than not hearing anything at all.
just a moment, I'm gonna call you back on the speakerphone. All right, hang on. Thank you for answering.
That's a fun one.
I figured that's what he wanted, but I wasn't sure if he remembered that there was a call right now.
Hello.
All right, you can hear us?
Yeah, better.
Excellent.
Hey, Ben.
Because they're,
I haven't had lunch yet, but I guess I'm
I
gonna
want
cookie
one.
first.
Everybody gets a cookie.
Everyone gets. Thank you.
Matt?
So, see, if you had joined, you could have cookies and join us in person next time.
The virtual Ben.
Is a virtual event.
No one told me there were cookies involved.
Oh, yeah, there's
We
food all week.
Food all week this week. We were all about food
Small
this week.
business week.
Is
So
that
that's-
what?
I have ice cream.
That's really about it. I mean, that was the culmination of my goal with getting together with Haverhill.biz, is seeing how we could work together, seeing, you know, what your level of interest was with, you know, even thinking about that kind of thing.
It's high.
Yeah.
Yep, good.
So,
I think I see a
And-
program that's already underway that we could add energy and people to.
yeah, and, you know, a certain amount of it is actual hands-on volunteer work, and a certain amount of it is really just communication to the local. You get a lot more input, a lot more participation than a 12-hour river ruckus.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things
Right.
like that, or an
People can- it's
all-day
manageable.
festival, or those kind of things that take, you know, weeks or months of planning
It's a
and
large
sponsors
commitment.
and all these other things. This is the kind of stuff that we can kind of just knock off independently. All it really takes, you know, we have rakes and shovels and tool, you know, it's like we can just kind of get after it rather than, you know, having to do all that extra planning and get a whole bunch of other people involved. So we should have good participation on the volunteer side, and, you know, hopefully that's the kind of thing that makes an impact.
And a four-letter acronym too?
What?
Small projects, big impact, SPBI. I mean, it's all good.
That was my my logo design debut, my premiere,
Damn,
my first logo.
damn.
So is there interest in the city, like the repairing sidewalks and the like? And
Well, each little piece, again, there, you know, we probably have about 40 of these little places.
yeah, because there's like on Washington Square and a little bit.
Yeah, so we have 40 of these little problem spots, let's say. Each of them kind of has to be handled a little bit differently, because some of them, the first step is going to the city to see if the city has a plan to do something about it first, because it's, you know, clearly on city property and
Yeah.
things like that. Others, you know, others not so much.
Right.
So,
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
no, I'm happy to be here.
And next Monday, the meeting is at 6:30, 7?
We meet from 7 to 9 downstairs
At HC Media.
Studio 101.
Yeah. Should we announce that in our sort of feedback
Sure.
to our members to come
Sure.
on down?
I'm always in favor of, you know,
Yeah.
that cross-pollinating. I think it's a good thing.
Good.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
On to the update on the parking team, of which the two of us are members. I'm gonna let you speak to it if you don't mind, now that you've fed yourself.
Now you have a mouthful
Now
of
that I have a
cookies.
mouthful of cookies.
I can, you know, if I work through this while I'm talking, I can
Oh,
refill.
my apologies.
It's televisual,
The
right?
word came out as I was, yes, like, ah,
So we've met 3 times
3 times.
at
yes.
Mary Grisey's office.
Yes.
And we met with Mike Stankovich twice.
Mhm.
And we'll meet next with Bill Pillsbury. I forget what the date is that we worked out with him. But he's made
Yes.
himself available. The mayor has basically got wind of this, I think through Tim. And, you know, this was an issue that was, you know, an action item that coalesced around possible dreams. And Tim and Mary and Jeff got together and talked about this, I think, as one of the topics. And then it brought it to Haverhill.biz as something that they were concerned about as downtown interested business people. So we formed a subcommittee. The mayor heard about it and has just kind of blanketed us with attention and access to documents and planning and processes.
And people.
And people, which has
Yes.
been brilliant.
It's
We
been
can't
awesome.
ask for
Yes,
more.
yes.
We can ask for all of this to be better thought out, but that's not,
Well, there's willing participation and
Yeah.
forward progress, which
And,
is
and
fantastic.
so as a matter of policy too, our approach to this is not to say, we want to find out why you fucked up, city government, and we're gonna hold you accountable, man, because we already paid our taxes. Not like that at all. We want to help assess the situation because we're feeling pain. And help work within the system to get some solutions. This is stuff that gets done in cities, and it's not rocket science. If they're not as far ahead on the planning of these specific things as we'd like them to be or they need to be, we're just gonna jump in and figure out how to help out, and that's our approach. So we think there's sort of a parallel, two parallel paths that are moving forward. One is attacking short-term pain with the process that's in place, and the other is doing a three-part study of of capacity versus demand, and that's gonna be at 3 snapshots in time, using the data that we can generate for the.
And looking not just on like the next few months, but looking years in advance and to see what, because some of these projects, in order to mitigate these problems, may take 5 years to put a parking deck up, or
Exactly.
may take, a significant time, in which case we'll be in pain for much longer, or potentially, the whole impetus here is we see some thriving development progress here, and we don't want to curtail that by a lack of parking, because we're already starting to feel the pain. And I think that's probably a good segue to talk about what we've heard in terms of downtown concerns.
Yeah, good.
And put a call out to the audience, the group, tell us your pain. We need to know. We want to make sure that we're accurately representing our membership. And we can't do that if we don't hear the feedback. So here is the list of, I've got it up on the screen. Right now, downtown has, and please feel free to jump in, Matt.
Go ahead.
Lack of downtown loading zones. I know of one in particular on Washington Street. I don't know if there are others, but in general, I have seen vehicles double parked quite regularly in order to deliver materials, supplies, and that's one thing for construction. It's another thing entirely for a business that needs to operate, in this manner, to have their 6 a.m. deliveries every morning. It can be a nuisance both for traffic and for the people who park on the street and the like. The Goki deck, which is sitting out beside us here, has often been used as a consideration for available parking spaces. And as these developments are coming up, Matt was telling us that they have to assume typically 0.75 vehicle spaces per unit have to be allocated to that development and have to be available.
For new projects,
For new projects. For existing developments, I guess it varies. Is that correct? Or,
Existing spaces exist, existing buildings exist.
yeah,
Exist. When there's new development, it's 1.5, in generally, it's different. And with the opportunity to make it 0.75, given certain criteria, access to the river, et cetera, by the development project.
so it varies between 1.5 and 0.75. That's the safer thing to say.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we seem to be oversubscribed in terms of the number of developments that are ongoing right now, because they've been approved and they don't appear to be in total as these come online, that will have those spaces available. They seem to potentially be double counting these spaces, or relying on the Goki deck for buildings that are downtown in terms of the allocated parking, which creates tremendous pressure for the businesses that like the retail, the hospitality, the restaurateurs that require foot traffic or driven traffic to patronize their business.
And-
It's potentially choking them by making no available parking apart from a 2, 3, 4 block walk. And so the considerations, that's one of them. The MBTA garage at $80 a month is an expensive option. And we've learned that they're oversubscribed. At last count, they're over 415, give or take, 413 permits sold for 300 and some odd spaces. Now, oversubscription is normal because not every space is used, but.
Yeah, we should be careful to sort of give them credit for industry standards.
Yes.
That's kind of the way you should.
No, understood.
You're saying in the garage by the train station?
Yes,
There's 300 spots and they sell 415 passes?
415 monthly permits. So, now granted, some of the use cases are different. We've got commuters who work in Haverhill, live elsewhere, work in Haverhill, live elsewhere and commute in, or train in. And we've got others that live in downtown and commute to parts elsewhere. So you can have some overlap where the uses might not be coincident. But we are seeing issues during snowstorms where people with passes are being turned away. And it's also, you know, if it's not near capacity, it's getting close. So the, let's see, Locust Street parking lot, which is behind Maria's, was one of the permit-only parking locations. So for those of us who have purchased downtown parking permits, either as residents, yes, or as employees of a particular business, are granted permit to the right to park in permit-only spaces or mixed-use spaces. And for some businesses, such as Matt's and Mary's, the number of permit-only spaces, which were more guaranteed to be open and available to their employees and their staff, are now, that number has dwindled somewhat because of the closure of this lot. And the mixed-use spaces are often being consumed by other uses.
So, I mean, so there's some real short-term pain
Yes.
that's being felt. And there are a series of recommendations, excuse me, the city's consultant has made that the city council has declined to adopt that will help alleviate the short-term pain. And so one of our,
What was that?
there's 18 of them. There's, you know, sort of management of the spaces, how to manage it effectively. So basically, you know, intermittent out-of-towners whose need is less acute and temporary park in the periphery, and you know, small businesses located right in town who are permanent, whose needs are regular, are accommodated closer in. It's the opposite now, and it just doesn't work. And it's also not predictable. There's a whole series of things, but you know, their consultant was on top of this stuff 3 years ago when the report was written. City Council adopted, I think they had a great big battle over paid parking and what the rates were, and they put all of their energy into fighting that battle and having an outcome that we live with now, and didn't really have a lot of political will or energy to attack these 18 sort of management and tune-up issues. So part of our two-prong attack right now is to go address the immediate pain that we're feeling by championing a handful of the most productive of these recommendations. And there's a parking commission that the mayor has convened to sort of be between the legislative group and the consulting and design, you know, concept to sort of sort through implementation. They meet on demand. They're the ones who take actively these 18 measures to city council and have them voted on or not. So our plan is to go back to them and say, hey, you know, here's a dozen of these 18 that we really think are important. That this is the businesses of downtown speaking. Mr. Mayor, please reconvene this commission, and he probably will if we're reading his interest right. And we'll work with them to get the stuff back in front of the city council and get these things, you know, implemented to help ease the short-term pain as much as we can, while we're identifying sort of mid-range and longer-range big issues. Because as Seth was saying, you know, what we're seeing, what I've seen since I first worked in Haverhill in 1989 was that the development in downtown on a graph is kind of skittered along with stops and starts and some nice high points, but never really recreated a synergy. What we've got at the moment is that we've got a nice incline of activity. Development in downtown is growing at a steady pace and it's continuing to, but if we have parking capacity problems and the type of PR that comes from that, where we have really vocal, angry residents and business owners going to the press, and this becomes, one of those issues that, by the time that happens, we will have had a very serious physical problem. People's loud mouths are usually behind the reality of it. What the danger is that nice incline of development will stall, and it's a delicate thing. Do we know whether it's ever gonna restart again? I think that we really need to do everything we can to keep it from stalling, so we would think ahead. So that's sort of that's the summary of what we're up to with some of the specifics we've found and how we're getting at
Yeah.
it.
Well, Kevin, not to put you on the spot, but you're a downtown resident, are you not?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
your experience?
I park in the garage, the $80 garage.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen a sign out front during snowstorms that says monthly passes only.
okay, so they are starting to.
So they cut
that's-
off all additional, but
that's
I've
their
never, even during the snowstorms when I've gotten in under that
Yeah.
signage, I've never seen it completely full. I've never heard of
Okay.
somebody with a pass being turned away. I'm not saying it hasn't happened or it's
Yeah.
never happened, but I've just never seen it. I've been, because usually on a typical weeknight,
Yeah,
so everybody kind of, you can just tell it's human behavior. When you go in, it kind of spirals up, and it always fills from the ground to the top, right? So on a typical day, I park on the, I get home, it says maybe 7 o'clock, and I end up parking on the second floor. If I were to keep going up, only about the third floor is half full, and then the fourth and the fifth are essentially empty. There's some cars that stay in there long term. You can tell by the amount of dust on them and things like that
yeah.
that are in there. Yeah, there have been snowstorms where I've seen it basically all the way full, but then those guys even kind of jockey cars around, and they'll put one on the side, they'll put one over here, which you see a lot more down in Boston and stuff like that when they really start jamming those cars in.
Yeah.
And I think I've only seen that once over there. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. That's just what I've been aware of. I'm sure that they have, if you're getting reports that people have been turned away with a monthly pass, I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah,
I've just never seen that. Yeah, and that really is the only place I park. Once I go in and out of there, and I try to walk everywhere else. That's one of the things I love about being downtown. So I do park at the Goki deck usually during the days for this or for other meetings here, or occasionally for night meetings down at Harbor Place, and that's I've never seen or had a problem over there at all.
Right.
I can see that becoming an issue though, because now that they've given that whole back row of spots, I don't know if it was to, I don't even know which direction I'm pointing now.
Goki's
The
there.
One Water Street over there, I think, ended up getting
did
some
they
of
really?
those spots, and then a few businesses got some spots in there as well, I believe. I'm
in the
not sure.
Goki deck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do you know who?
I don't know, no.
but the back wall, I think they've now basically rented out to other people, so.
And then they're gonna they're working on something, because the garage under this building and the apartment building next door is gonna close for a period of time of, say, 8 months or so. So all of us who work in the building and all of the residents who have parking are gonna have to start parking over there,
Oh, really? Wow.
at some
And during the
point.
day, the top deck is
So,
pretty near full.
so it
It
will be
is.
pretty, that's a lot, that's
Yeah.
all the bank employees, and there's only a few of us who park under there in our space, and then each apartment gets one space, so
Mhm.
it's a good sizable number of cars that will,
Be pushed over
be
there.
using
So
that.
we may end up with,
you may end up with
Contention
people
in the
complaining
Goki
about
deck.
that.
So this is part of the short-term plan that
Mm-hmm.
we just want to get a handle on what it really looks like, and
Well, I think that the last one that you have there, I think is probably the most, that's like the linchpin of figuring out this
Right.
whole thing.
it's
Because
the elephant. in the
I
room.
can't imagine that they were all planned with each other in mind. I think they kind of came, they said the first one, no problem, the second one, no problem. The third one, the first and second one weren't even built yet, so they didn't factor them into their traffic studies, then
You
they
know,
go
to-
with the third and the
yeah,
fourth.
that's right, and to be fair, Bill Pillsbury and the mayor and Mike Stankovich are smart people. And what they're doing is balancing the opportunity to offer those spaces with, you know, the need to develop, to encourage business and development. And so, you know, on one hand, you wanna kind of bet that things will catch fire and, you know, offer these carrots, but, you know, they're running a balancing act. And what, you know, so they're actually, what we're gonna need them to do is change models and grow confident that development will happen if we plan properly and in a linear fashion. Because I think that the way they've been doing it is a little ham and egg, and as opportunities come up. And it's kind of what you're saying, you know, but understanding what they're doing. But
Oh, yeah.
that, you know, if all the cards come due all at once, we got a big problem. But I think we're starting to see that's happening, and we wanna get some changes.
Yeah.
So you said the Locust Street parking lot is closed?
That one was, that lot, the city's lease on Locust Street parking lot,
They never owned it.
they never owned it, they
They
leased it.
just, in our recent memory, have always used it, you know, had a lease on it.
Yeah.
So if we walk over there today, that lot is empty?
No, it's a laydown yard for the construction
For
project at
construction.
the Chen block.
Huh,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's owned by the Chen
I
block.
didn't realize that.
It was always, you know, primary design and a whole bunch of, you know, the businesses from around our area.
Yeah.
Used to park there, it was like the secret outlet spot.
exactly,
Yeah.
not too far away and always had a spot.
Right.
Ben, while you're on the line here, since you have a downtown business, can you share your thoughts on parking, if there's any impact, or?
Oh yeah, it has changed a lot over the past few months.
Okay.
I went from when I first moved in here almost 2 years ago now. It was there was no problem at all getting a spot, a permit spot. Now there's 0 permit spots, and I'm usually parking on the street and moving my car every 2 hours.
Wow, okay. And how has that affected your business? Just made it more difficult, or?
Well, it's more difficult for, like, when people come, usually the meetings aren't more than 2 hours, so that's fine. But the guys that work here, I mean, I'm paying for their permits and I'm paying for them to go to the garage because there's no spots.
Oh, okay,
Around 4 o'clock, like 3-ish, 4-ish, it starts to open up a little bit. But it just is what it is. Usually you can find a street spot, but they're only good for 2 hours, and then you have to start paying. And it's not expensive, but it's just annoying to pay for a permit and not, you know,
Yeah, you don't want to pay
parking.
twice.
It just sucks.
right, exactly. All right, cool,
So,
thank you.
yeah, and you probably already talked about it, but there used to be a lot behind Maria's.
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
like an
the Locust
overflow
Street lot.
That is that being closed really is annoying, because I think that's the biggest problem.
Okay.
And there's new residents next door too, so, you know, people need to park, but
Yeah,
it's much more difficult now than it was a year ago.
okay, good to know, thank you. All right, let's see, on to the next,
Yeah.
Creative Industry Nights. So, Ben, would you like to tell the audience here, what's going on?
Yeah, so I have no reason to believe that John is not doing it, because he said he would, and I know he's knee-deep in production right now.
Okay.
He's not responding to my emails, but he already said he's going to do it, so I can't imagine that being a problem. Angela she's confirmed, she sent her bio, she sent her photo that I sent over to you.
Awesome.
I have to schedule a call with, I can't remember his name, but he was that writer that we talked about last time. He left me a message, and we just need to connect to
Yep.
find out what
Yeah,
his deal
Chris
is.
Golden.
Chris Golden, yeah.
But it's looking good. I mean,
Good.
when do you guys want to start, or when are you planning to start promoting? And what do you need from me as far as like logos or photos or whatever?
So I'm
You
gonna
know, ready
meet
to
with,
give you whatever you need.
I'm gonna set some time with Brian from HC Media. We've got the green light to use him for the creative aspects. We'll get the style guide done with the movie poster will be our style guide. And then from that, everything else is gonna roll forward. Stephanie's gonna draft up a press release. Now that we have a date and we have panelists, we can.
So I'll need their bios if you have that.
Yep,
If you have
we
everybody's
can,
bios,
we
that'd
can
be
work on
helpful.
bios. So just as a bit of background for those who aren't aware, Creative Industry Night, our third of these events, designed to focus the spotlight on creative industry within the city of Haverhill or the greater Merrimack Valley. And this theme this time around is film and television. Our event will be held on the 13th of June from 6 to 9 p.m. Located downstairs at Haverhill at HC Media Studio 101. We have a writer, editor, director by the name of John Stimson, who has agreed to join us as a panelist. And we have Angela Perry, who does a fair amount of casting in Boston, very well known in that regard. We're working on a third panelist, as Ben mentioned. And fourth, we have community television. We've got Matt Belfiore and Lindsay Paris, who have agreed to talk about the value of community television in building these careers. And it's a unique opportunity for those involved in film and television to get together and network. So, if you're interested in participating in the planning of this, we meet weekly on Fridays. Shoot me an email and we'll get you connected up. All right, any more on that? Anything else?
Just this Friday, I saw that the invite come through. I'm going to be in
Yes.
Geneva, New York, picking up my daughter,
All right,
checking on Kevin's family.
okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So, I splashed this up momentarily, but I did want to highlight the number of development projects is remarkable in terms
Yeah.
of active
Yeah,
builds
that's cool.
in downtown Haverhill. And many of us are aware of this, so I'll just breeze through these, but these are up to the minute production shots. We've got phase, is it phase 2 or
Call
phase
it
3?
phase 2.
I've heard it say phase 3, but it's phase 2, isn't it?
Building 3.
Building 3.
Phase 2.
Is about to begin, as Stephanie mentioned. We've got an excavator sitting in the hole. We got some construction fence coming up.
So tell me,
But basically, the only thing that's going to happen here in the immediate future is the digging of the garage. Is they're going to extend the existing garage out under that space.
Okay.
So there's not any plan, as far as I know, to actually to have the building
Oh, really?
start yet.
so tell me, this is what I've heard, is it's not actually going forward. We're not
Yes,
gonna
I've also
stop.
heard that too.
Yeah.
So I
Stop
don't know
every-
I have no other.
So what are our sources for?
So
saying
all
that-
I know is I did get a notice the garage is gonna close because of the work.
Did.
Anywhere from 6 to 8 months. I'm gonna lean on the higher end, obviously. And it's gonna start sometime in May or June. But the
That's any day.
stuff I know is that I think the money that they have is just essentially to do that kind of foundation work, and there's not necessarily all of the funding needed to do the next building.
But they're gonna do that with the building in mind. It's not as though the garage is all you get.
I'm not sure in that.
Okay.
I don't know the
I've
answer
seen
to that
similar
question.
developments in Kendall Square, for example, where they built the parking garage years ago, and 5-10 years later, 2 additional high-rises went up on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, who knows? So the imminent thing is the garage work, which will put part of the boardwalk out of commission, and, force all of the Harbor Place residents and employees to park across the street. So it's gonna be an unsightly,
That's what it is, it's progress.
for, yeah, for 8 months to a year, and then next year. As Andrew Haverhill said at a meeting, 2019 is not gonna be the summer of the boardwalk between all of the construction projects, but 2020 should be the summer of the boardwalk.
Just think of it as a
So,
private deck.
yeah.
You can go out to your private deck.
So between the work at Sal's building and this, we're not gonna really be utilizing that full stretch of waterfront this year, but hopefully.
So do you know the Sal's project, that does include the cantilevered part of the boardwalk that has to go out over that wall? So the boardwalk will be continuous all the way up from,
To be
So his project's supposed to expand the boardwalk, I believe, right? When it's
behind the, or to the
to
edge of the
bank,
post
on the
office.
post office, yeah, okay.
From the bank.
okay, so then there's still another stretch there that needs to go from the post office. There's
To
another,
the tap.
another
or
stretch
whatever.
that,
Yeah,
He's gotta go behind
Needs
the
to be
post
built.
office.
Yeah,
The
you
post
know-
office, I imagine, is federal in that regard.
Yeah, but we can build on top of the flood wall behind it. And that the post office is one of those industries that's evolving quickly, and whether
devolving?
Well,
No, they're evolving quickly, very
Yeah.
rapidly, in fact.
so are their real estate needs gonna continue to be served by that big building or not? And I think the answer's not.
Right, on the way out.
Yeah, so we'll cross that hurdle.
All
There's-
right.
There's other things going on around, on the other side of the post office as well that are gonna be public in the next month or two.
Okay.
That will.
Other side.
Yeah, so, Sal's
going toward-
project is coming from the sort of downstream side, and this is upstream from the.
Oh, where the
Post
music
office.
center was.
Nope, the other way.
Parking lot.
Yeah,
Oh,
the-
okay.
yeah, in between, yeah.
So that's gonna involve some boardwalk building too.
Yeah.
Way too sensitive. Anyway,
Yep.
So that's good,
Yeah,
Yes.
columns are.
and it'll park
stuff's coming
itself. Sal's project does.
it parks itself, that's correct. It does have its own parking garage, and hopefully it'll give us some net positive. Space is available.
Well, you won't.
Well, it'd be net neutral at best, hopefully.
Yeah, I think if we have growth with that, with neutral impact, that's positive.
That is positive. As you can see, we've got, the deck is appearing, the decks are appearing. The staircases are in place, and work is progressing very rapidly. I mean, to see, last month's picture was just 2 towers with slip forms still on them. To see that kind of progress in 30 days is
Part of the beautiful thing about steel construction is it goes up fast.
very fast.
It's
Very
cool.
fast. And pretty soon, I'm hoping we'll see the skin show up on the bottom. And if past projects are true to form. Any case, we've got a elevator tower, is that correct?
Building in a bag, yeah.
Building in a bag, and, well, I was going to point out that the elevator here is, it has now emerged from its cocoon.
Yes, it's come out of the.
Do you know how much further they have on that project, or are they getting close?
Yes. And I actually talked to Joe Hart, and I forget what he's the director of Haverhill Housing who owns the building. But I forget what he targeted. I think it's
It's
the end of the
soon,
summer.
it's coming, I think like June-ish, isn't it? Maybe that's a little ambitious, I thought one
I
of the
would-
meetings I was listening to said
I hope it's true,
but,
but soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right direction.
So this, I want to talk about the Historic District Commission at some point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we should do it, we've got a list of projects we want to review, if you want to do
Yeah,
that.
I can bust through them real quick.
This one
Yeah.
brings to mind issues with the HDC, but we can keep rolling
All right,
and come back to that if we take some time.
so, it's looking better? Nearly done?
There's people living there.
People
People
moving in,
moving in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it wasn't just staging.
Full.
That was really, yes.
They
They
got
got
a
58 units
couple,
full.
commercial units on the ground floor that aren't built out, but I think they've got
They're
everything
fully
filled.
leased.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
that's remarkable.
Well, so this is the thing about our housing market right now is we have, a 50,000 unit deficit in the Merrimack River Valley alone. We can't build enough 58 unit rental developments. The market reports says that downtown Haverhill will absorb 100 to 200 market rate rentals a year for the foreseeable future, and we just put 58 on. We're, for the foreseeable, and we're operating at a deficit. These things are gonna go like hotcakes, we just gotta keep doing it and figure out parking.
It's harvest
know?
time.
Well, it is, so yeah, darn right it's full.
All right, speaking of which, we've got 98 Essex. I noticed that there are, it does look like a mixed use in that regard. The 1 to 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom apartments that they're layering out there. I don't know if we know much about it.
So I think it's workforce housing.
It is workforce housing,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just like next door there, in like the Hayes Building on Granite Street.
It is, okay. Very cool, very
Yeah.
cool.
The entire building?
Yeah.
Cool. And they are starting to do work on the exterior facade.
Yeah.
It looks like they're starting to get the brick, I don't know if they were pointing it or cleaning it or whatnot, but they've also got an overhanging structure. So the exterior facade is going to, it looks like there's some improvements in the works as well.
Thank God.
Yeah, yeah. All right, next, music center, do we know any movement on that?
They've been working on a demo, under a demo permit, and they've had people in there doing all sorts of demolition. I don't know what the holdup is. I actually have a call with the owner, Jonathan Cousins, on Friday for about another project, and I'll find out what the latest is on
Magnavox building?
this.
I know.
See if there's a file in your email inbox.
Okay.
If you can get that up, I've got some up-to-date images of
Sure.
that in
We'll
there.
do that. Look at that.
So I can see, scroll through, I think, page 11.
Live as we speak.
Are they actively renovating the top 3 floors of that right now?
Magnavox?
No.
No, so the status while we're waiting for drawings is the Crystal Engineering owns an option to buy. So they've actually renewed it, and so that for those who are in the home audience who don't know what that means, you put some money down and they take it off the market until you get a chance to do your permitting and your due diligence, basically. And so the Crystal is looking at doing so I think it's page 11, Seth. Advanced manufacturing and education job training on the ground floor for his operation, and then his engineering department would be upstairs. He's working with state agencies right now. There's a job creation money available, and there's other programs that he's in the process of qualifying for, putting into works and so forth. So the bottom image on the screen there is the storefront manufacturing and education, and then in back, stealthily cloaked in zebra stripes, so as to fit in with everything else, is a new stair and elevator core that sits inside an existing light well. So that's just sort of in the parking lot behind there, and I showed the client a version of this that just has metal cladding on the exterior. We've figured out what the paint finish needs to be. It could be something that's graphic and dramatic like this. It could be something very simple and plain. All of that's to be determined, but this is the basics of the project.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
I hope the zebra stripes stick.
Right.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Right, I
Yeah.
mean, you gotta just put it up there and make them say no.
Exactly. All right, our next one, the
Alforno?
Alforno, thank you. Alforno building, in progress, and and I got a closer picture of it this time around. The second floor is going to potentially be retail, which
Not a restaurant.
so on the first floor, they've got 1720
Oh, they call it
available.
retail, I see why you're saying.
And retail, they could do second floor opportunity as well in that regard. So it looks like maybe the third and fourth are residential and the first two are retail commercial, or a mixture there.
It's gonna be all residential.
You gotta call it all residential.
There's no retailers.
The people that own Hard Body Meals are looking for, I was talking to him today,
Yep,
and they are looking to split their businesses because they do meal prep and to order meals. They want to split their business and have their meal prep be in the location they're in now and open up a smaller, actual restaurant in downtown. So
cool.
I know they've already talked to Dugan, but they said that he, had a million things going on when they talked to him. So they want to just kind of be fresh in people's minds as opportunities pop up. I think they would be a good fit for Haverhill.biz, but they're never available for meetings. But they are looking for a restaurant environment somewhere downtown for their food, and I think they offer something different. So, you know, as things pop up, just kind of keep that in mind.
Good to know. What's the guy's name? The hard
You know,
barge.
it escapes me, and we've talked so many times.
Me
I,
too.
like,
He's a
I can't
great
ask
guy.
him
He's
his
a
name
real
now.
he's a real character, and it's gonna bug me until I remember.
Hillary will know.
Yeah, she's good at. But okay, well, let's keep our
trucking
eyes
here.
open and let's get these folks set up.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
I don't know
They're
about,
opening up. They're opening up a branch in Malden, so they're really starting to expand.
Oh, wow.
excellent.
Wow.
This is very good.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, moving further down on Washington Street, we've got the space above Moonshiners. I believe Moonshiners is now open, is that correct?
Oh, that's been open, yeah.
Yeah,
Will always be the chit chat.
it'll always be the chit chat for those, the diehard people.
Those who don't
Nonetheless.
deal with change very well.
But all three floors seem to be being renovated presently. And then lastly, the former Garrison building.
The long ago former.
Yes, well, it wasn't much more than, what, 4 months ago, a government shutdown that, that was the point where the building last stood.
Is that
Stop,
right?
stop Randolini.
Ah, well done.
There we
Yep,
go.
Kevin, that's
Thank
right.
you.
Scott.
On the spot.
Scott, that's right.
Scott Brandolini.
Right.
Yeah. Good old Kevin. Yeah, the Gerson building is it's like this a monstrous earthwork, man. This is impressive.
Yes, this is an
I mean,
impressive excavation.
This is a project that's expensive. They are investing in our community in
Yeah.
a big way.
Yeah,
And so we should all understand what that means.
and I've heard that there's ground floor commercial
Yeah.
planned for it.
Yeah, that they had been an idea that there would be a wildflower Montessori school there.
Yes,
and
yes, Janet mentioned that.
they were not granted their charter. So I think these guys are back out looking for someone else.
Mhm.
But yeah, it should be mixed use.
Very cool. All right, so here'd be a good spot for the item you wanted to add.
So let's go back to the building in a bag in Washington Square.
Yep,
And yes, so we have several historic district commissions in Haverhill, and they operate based on regions. And so there's one that deals with downtown, the Downtown Historic District Commission. And I'm on it. And I joined it because 6 years ago, when I first started coming around these parts and moved my office here, I realized that it functioned in a really bad way, really dysfunctional way. And I knew that would become problematic, like unplanned parking. And it had the same effect on development, damper. And so, as is some, maybe it's foolhardy, but as is my way, rather than making a big stink and going to the papers and screaming and yelling, I decided to join. What a fool! And to try to work from inside to help make this better. So what I've been able to do in the years since I joined is gather around me a series of like-minded individuals who have the will to cause this body to function properly. We haven't quite gotten the city to agree to do the two things that are necessary to really finish that process. The first thing the city needs to do is allow us to write a set of guidelines and criteria by which, we publish to the development and owning community our guidelines that we're going to interpret on, based on their proposals, so they can look at it ahead of time and say, well, if we do it this way, and this way, we should be fine with the HDC. Let's go have our hearing. And then when we get as members of the HDC, when we get a case, we listen to what they're saying, we consult our guidelines, and we say it matches, or it's a gray area and we have to interpret, and it's our baseline for operating. It's fair, it's what the rest of the world does, and it's not what we do. So we need to adopt an enlightened, smart growth, 21st century set of guidelines. To my knowledge now, there's nothing. The second thing we need to do is have the president position rotate, because the president has been in place for a long time and is from a tradition of when bodies like this could operate in a much different way, and didn't have the public scrutiny that they have now, and also it didn't, development wasn't as dependent on groups like this, and so his approach to running this committee is it's personal. It's from a different era. He's a good man and a very smart man and very committed. Spends a lot of time, and all of that is good, but it's bad, and it needs to be tuned up. And he's someone I've known a long time, and I respect him tremendously. And I've tried to work with him to sort of migrate his approach, and that's not going to happen. So I think we need to rotate. So those are things that I've been working on, and sort of the state of that group. It's going to be really important as we continue developing our downtown to have that group together. Joe Hart, the director of Haverhill Housing, came to us 3 years ago with a proposal for that elevator tower. And this is an example of the dysfunction. That was a piece of modern design. It looked like it, was respectful of context and massing, and was clad in a way that was clear that it was built in the 21st century, which is how history marches on in architecture, And the head of our group, in a very patronizing way, took him aside and redrew the plans and told him to make it a little bit more like that, and he would approve it. And they came back 4 times trying to guess what would be approvable to this guy. And finally, this guy just took and drew what he thought should be done. It's what you see built there. And that is the reverse of how a group like this is supposed to operate. If this wasn't a municipal group, if this was a developer, there would have been tremendous consequences for the city. Dramatic. You can't. This is not legal. So that's the prospect of this happening is terrifying. The downside of what could be, built into bricks for generations to come in our downtown with a dysfunctional group like this is it's bad. So, with that being the case, last Friday we had a series of proposals come before us. I had to recuse myself because one of them was a client, and what happened was there's sort of a big blow up with the president and that client. There was tears, there was shouting, there was insulting words spoken on both sides. But what's happened was the president and at least one of the other members sort of doubled down on bad behavior, and then rolled through the other 2 applicants in a similar fashion. And it was one of the other applicants that left in tears. And so this is a bad thing for business. It's bad government. It's bad business. And I feel a little foolish because I've been a party to it and trying to, delicately migrate it into the light, and really feel like we need to figure out how to light a bomb under it. But I wanted to at least say these words in this group, and sort of put a marker in the ground as it being a concern on this date.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's something for this group to do right now, but we should be prepared to light the torches and get our pitchforks and run in a horde to City Hall if it comes to that.
Get the tea.
Yeah.
So, this is an appointed commission? Forgive me if you mentioned.
Well, it's exactly that.
Okay.
And part of the thing is this is our
What
former
is the actual name of the commission?
Downtown Historic District Commission.
This under the guise of the mayor in this case?
So
or-
we have a strong mayor system
Right.
in Haverhill, and what that in effect means is that the mayor directly and personally appoints the heads of the various sort of subgroups, not city council or school board, directly, and it's sort of without oversight, to my knowledge, and at his or her pleasure. And it's an efficient system. It's a good system in some ways, and our mayor is very good at making the system work, and he sort of uses it as a way of these are levers of control in the city. He's good at it, and he doesn't apologize for it. It's how it goes. But we've run into a situation where this board has been basically put in place to be a speed bump, so that development can be slowed down sometimes in case he wants a second look at it, rather than the interpreter of smart regulations that allows for predictable and smart investment and growth, which is a little bit scarier for a politically elected governing official, because you basically release control. So we have sort of a clash of needs. I think the city needs something different than the system in place promotes, and our executive is not of a mind to change the system or to work within the system to change the specific pieces that are problematic. You know, we're being publicly recorded, so I won't, speak
fair.
informally and name names and everything, but that's basically what the story is. So
Okay.
these are issues. I don't know that there's a call to action right now, or that there's a solution that's obvious, but we should all be aware of this stuff, and we should keep it in the back burner as things develop, and be ready to help with
Okay.
solutions.
Thank you for bringing that to the table. It's good to know.
Thanks for having the table.
You assume that all is well until you know otherwise. So,
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we are well past our hour, and in interest of being considerate of everyone's time, thank you for joining us. And I think we'll discuss the next the other items related to our organization and how we do things next time.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you to the audience at home. Until next time.
Thanks, Ben.
No problem, guys. Talk soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
He's-
Thank you.
The participant whose acronym is